I used to ask, why does life cost so much? Then one day I asked a better question. Why didn't I learn how to afford it? And that, my friend, was the beginning of everything changing. You see, life doesn't respond to need. It responds to seed. And the problem isn't always where you are. It's what you've been taught to believe about where you can go. Most people are trapped, not by chains, but by their own thoughts. They're walking in circles on a mental leash, tied to poverty, not by money, but by mindset. That was me too. Until I met a mentor who looked me dead in the eye and said, Jim, if you don't like where you are, change it. You're not a tree. So today I want to share with you the 3 shifts that took me from broke at 25 to a millionaire by 31. Not because I worked harder, no. I changed my thinking. And when your thinking shifts, your life follows like a shadow chasing the sun. Let's begin. I remember the day I stopped blaming the government, my family, the economy, or even the weather for where I was in life. That was the day everything started to change. You see, the poor mindset loves to point fingers. It says, if only the boss paid me more, or if the economy wasn't so bad, I'd be further ahead. But the rich mindset? It starts with one powerful shift, taking full responsibility, not partial, not conditional, full. The moment I stood in front of the mirror and said, this is on me, was the moment I unlocked the door to wealth. Now, I didn't suddenly make $1 million that day, but what I did was far more valuable. I reclaimed the steering wheel of my life. Responsibility is ownership, and ownership is power. The poor mindset sees life like a lottery waiting for luck, hoping for rescue. But wealth is never handed to anyone by chance. It's built on discipline, decision, and direction. And direction doesn't come until you accept that you are the one holding the map. The Stoics taught, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. I decided I was done being dragged. I became willing to change, to learn, to grow. I was willing to accept that my bank account was a reflection not of the world, but of my philosophy. And as I changed that philosophy, the numbers changed too. Slowly, yes, but surely. Let me give you an example. I once met a man who earned a solid wage for years, yet always seemed broke. He blamed taxes, his boss, his luck. But another man I knew earned half as much and built wealth over time. Why? The second man took responsibility. He read, saved, invested, and stayed accountable. The first man waited for something to change. The second man became the change. When I took that same approach, life opened up. Not all at once, but enough to show me the path was real. And once you see that path, you feel that shift from victim to creator, you'll never go back. Because wealth doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who own. I used to think money was meant to be spent. The moment I got a paycheck, I'd find a way to exhaust it, nicer clothes, a fancier meal, a quick trip. And then I'd sit there wondering why I was always behind, why there was never enough left over. That was poverty thinking. Spending satisfies the moment, but investing secures the future. And that was the second shift that changed my life forever. You see, the poor mindset asks, what can I buy with this? But the rich mindset asks, what can this become if I use it wisely? The first builds debt, the second builds assets. One is emotional, the other is intentional. It took me years to understand that money is a seed meant to be planted, not consumed. And just like any seed, if you plant it in the right soil with patience, it grows. Spend the seed, and it's gone. But invest it, and it multiplies. The ancient philosopher Seneca once said, wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool. When I was broke, money mastered me. I worked for it. I feared losing it. I spent it trying to feel rich instead of actually becoming rich. But the day I started investing in books, in skills, in small savings, in simple stocks, I began to master money. Slowly, the fear faded. And in its place came something new: peace, clarity, direction. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine got a small tax refund, 1 year around $500. Most folks would spend that on something quick, a gadget, a getaway. But he bought a used camera, taught himself photography, and within a year had a small side income. That's investing. That's vision. Same money, different mindset. The shift isn't just financial, it's philosophical. When you stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a producer, life changes. Because the rich don't chase pleasure, they build platforms. And the moment I stopped feeding my wants and started feeding my future, I crossed the line from poverty into prosperity. When I was young, I believed the solution to every financial problem was to just work harder, more hours, more effort, more sweat. But I was still broke, tired, yes, exhausted, even but broke nonetheless. And then someone wiser than me said something that stopped me cold. Don't just work harder on your job. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That one idea changed everything. You see, your income doesn't grow because your time gets longer. It grows because your value gets higher. The marketplace doesn't pay you for your time. It pays you for the value you bring in that time. A poor mindset waits for a raise. A rich mindset raises its skills, sharpens its thinking, and builds its own ladder to climb. That's the third shift that changed my life forever. I stopped hustling just to survive and started growing so I could thrive. There was a time when I sold goods door to door, sweating through long days, trying to make a sale. I was persistent, but my results were small. Then I decided to study communication. I read about influence, practiced how to listen better, how to speak with conviction. Within 6 months, my income tripled, not because I worked longer, but because I had worked smarter on myself. As the Stoic Epictetus once said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. And I would add having greater wisdom. Because when you grow yourself, you outgrow limitation. You start seeing opportunities others miss. You speak differently, carry yourself differently, attract differently. Your very presence begins to command more. Working hard is noble, but working blindly is dangerous. A man can dig for gold with his hands, or he can take time to build a better tool. One will exhaust him, the other will enrich him. So here's what I learned. If you want your life to change, don't just work harder at what you do. Work longer, deeper, and wiser on who you are. Because when you grow, everything around you grows with you. There was a time when I thought rest meant escaping into the easy comfort of entertainment after a hard day's work. Like many, I filled my evenings with distractions, TV shows, idle chatter, endless scrolling, and I convinced myself I was simply relaxing. But what I didn't realize then was that the poor mind seeks entertainment to forget, while the rich mind seeks education to remember who they want to become. The greatest shift came when I replaced some of those hours spent chasing distractions with reading, listening to wise voices, and learning skills that would raise my value. It wasn't about avoiding fun, but about choosing how I invested my time. It reminded me of what Benjamin Franklin once said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. That one idea pulled me out of complacency and into action. I recall a season when I was exhausted, and instead of turning on the radio for light talk, I decided to listen to a lecture on personal development. That single evening sparked a curiosity that became a lifelong pursuit. Slowly, my mind shifted. I began to crave books more than movies, podcasts more than parties, and that hunger changed how I saw myself and what I expected from life. Education is not a destination, it's a journey of transformation. The poor mind is satisfied with short bursts of amusement, but the rich mind understands that education stretches time, expands possibility, and builds a foundation for wealth that no storm can erode. As Aristotle wisely put it, The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. So, next time you find yourself reaching for easy distraction, remember that the richer path is through education. It may not be the easiest road, but it's the one that leads to lasting prosperity and the freedom to live life on your own terms. It's easy to look around at the world and believe that circumstances decide who wins and who loses in life. You might say, if only I had better luck, a better job, or a better family, I'd be rich. But the truth is, the real divide between the poor and the rich isn't what happens to use, it's what we do every single day. It's the habits we build, the choices we make, and the discipline we cultivate. I remember when I was starting out working jobs that didn't pay much and feeling stuck. It would have been easy to blame the cards I was dealt, but something inside me knew that my habits were the game changers. I started small, waking up earlier, reading a page or two every day, writing down goals and following through on promises I made to myself. Those habits built quietly but surely, until one day I realized my life was no longer dictated by circumstance but by consistent action. Take the example of the farmer who plants seeds every season. Whether the weather is kind or cruel, the farmer's routine of tending the fields decides the harvest, not luck. So it is with us. Charles Dickens once wrote, "The sun himself is weak when he first rises, and gathers strength and courage as the day gets on." Your habits are like that sun. They start small, but with persistence they light your path and warm your future. Riches don't come to those who wait for perfect conditions. They come to those who create good habits and stick with them, even when the world feels harsh. So, don't let your circumstances define you. Let your habits shape your destiny. This is where the true battle for wealth is won or lost. There's a saying that says, some people live for Friday, while others build lives where every day feels like Friday. That simple truth reveals a deep divide in mindset. When you live just to escape the work week, to get through Monday to Thursday, your life becomes a series of waiting rooms, waiting for the weekend, waiting for retirement, waiting for some elusive freedom. That's the poor mindset. It's a life on hold. I've seen it in my own life. And among many I've known, the early years are spent pushing through jobs that drain the spirit, dreaming of a someday that never quite comes. But the rich, those who build true wealth, don't wait for freedom. They create freedom. They build a life so aligned with their values, passions, and purpose that they don't need to escape from it. The work itself becomes a form of joy, a source of satisfaction, and a path to growth. It reminds me of the great philosopher Seneca, who said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." You don't have to be rich in money to live rich in life. But you do have to design your life intentionally, focusing on what gives you energy, not what drains it. It might mean investing time in learning skills, building relationships, or starting a business that serves your dreams, not someone else's. Think about the people who love their work so much that Monday mornings excite them. Their energy isn't postponed, it's present. That kind of life isn't handed to you, it's built. And when you build it, you're no longer living for the weekend, you're living fully every day. Remember, wealth is not just what you have, it's how you live. Build a life you don't need to escape from, and you've found a freedom money alone cannot buy. There's a fundamental difference in how the poor and rich minds view money, and it all boils down to cost versus value. When faced with a decision, the poor mind fixates on the price tag, the immediate cost. It's easy to get caught in that mindset because the number in front of you feels real and urgent. But the rich mind looks deeper. It asks, what is the value here? What will this bring me in return? It's a shift from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to opportunity. I remember early in my life, there were moments when I hesitated to invest in a book, a seminar, or even a simple tool that could have enhanced my skills. The cost seemed high, the risk uncomfortable. But I learned that when I focused on value, instead how much knowledge, growth, or opportunity that expense would unlock, the picture changed entirely. Benjamin Franklin once said, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." This truth isn't just about money. It's about your mindset toward what you allow yourself to acquire. This shift is not about reckless spending. It's about wise investment. When you buy the cheapest option every time, you may save money up front, but often you pay more in time, frustration, and missed opportunity. The rich mind understands that paying more for quality, learning, or a chance to grow is an investment in the future. It's the difference between buying a pair of cheap shoes that fall apart and a good pair that lasts years and supports your journey. It's a powerful mental realignment learning to see beyond the sticker price to the lasting value beneath. When you start valuing what truly benefits you, whether it's in money, time, or effort, you begin to build wealth in every area of your life, because wealth is not just in your bank account, it's in the choices you make every day. There's a subtle yet powerful distinction between chasing money and attracting it, and it all comes down to mindset and energy. The poor mind runs after money as if it's a prize at the end of a race, constantly hustling, stressing, and scrambling for every dollar. It's a chase fueled by fear of scarcity, fear of not having enough. But the rich mind understands that money is drawn to a certain state of being, not a frantic pursuit. It's attracted to confidence, clarity, and value. In my own journey, I've seen countless people exhaust themselves chasing money, only to find themselves more drained and no richer in spirit or opportunity. I learned that the richest moments came when I stopped the chase, focused on growing myself, serving others, and becoming someone worth investing in. As Aristotle wisely said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Excellence in your character, habits, and contributions is magnetic. Attracting money doesn't mean sitting idle and waiting. It means aligning your actions with your values, honing your skills, and creating solutions that others find valuable. It means becoming a person who offers more than just time. It's about offering worth. When you do that, opportunities come to you instead of you constantly running after them. This is the mindset that turns the pursuit into a natural flow. Think of the difference between a desperate beggar and a confident merchant. The merchant doesn't chase customers down the street. He cultivates relationships, builds trust, and offers something valuable that draws people in. That's how wealth flows through attraction, not desperation. When you shift from chasing to attracting, you stop exhausting yourself and start inviting prosperity. Money follows where respect, value, and confidence lead. This is a quiet power few recognize, but those who do find themselves living in a very different world. Many people look around at their surroundings, their neighborhoods, their jobs, their social circles, and blame their environment for their lack of success. They say, "If only I had better opportunities, a different background, or more resources, I could get ahead." But the truth is, environment is not an excuse. It's a decision. It's a choice to either let your circumstances define you or to define yourself despite them. I remember early in my life, the places I found myself were far from perfect. Opportunities seemed scarce and the odds often stacked against me. But I realized that waiting for the perfect environment was a trap. Instead, I chose to bring the environment to me. I sought out mentors, books, and ideas that could lift me higher. I created an atmosphere of growth wherever I was. Not because the environment changed, but because I decided to change how I responded to it. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your environment might be full of noise, distractions, or negativity, but your decision is to rise above it, to create a mental space that nourishes your ambitions. Wealthy minds curate their surroundings with intention. They choose to spend time with people who inspire growth, read books that expand their horizons, and build habits that keep their focus sharp. This is a lesson in personal power. No matter where you start, your environment is a product of your decisions. It's a reflection of what you accept and what you refuse to tolerate. When you embrace that responsibility, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the architect of your life's landscape. Your surroundings don't limit you unless you allow them to. The day you decide to take control of your environment is the day you take control of your destiny. Now, as we come to the close of this conversation about mindset, the invisible force that separates the poor from the rich, remember this: wealth is not simply a matter of dollars and cents. It's the result of choices made deep within the mind, long before the first coin changes hands. The difference between scarcity and abundance starts with how you see yourself, how you respond to life's challenges, and how you cultivate your thoughts, habits, and surroundings. You've heard about responsibility, investment, education, and the power of environment. These aren't just ideas to admire from afar. They are calls to action. Your life is shaped by the decisions you make today. The richest men and women throughout history did not wait for luck or better circumstances. They made their minds fertile ground for opportunity. So, I challenge you now. Don't settle for the mindset of limitation. Begin each day asking yourself, quote, "What choice can I make now to build the life I deserve?" Read a book that stretches your thinking. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. Invest time in yourself as seriously as you would invest money. The moment you decide to shift your mindset, you start walking the path from poverty to prosperity. It begins within you, and it begins now.